Hello, welcome to Scrum Basics. A quick overview. My name is Safar Zaran. I'm a certified Scrum Master. The purpose of this presentation is to tell you what roles exist within an agile team, or sometimes called Scrum Team. What are the building blocks of Scrum? You may hear terms like epic, stories, tasks, and we'll find out what they are and what they mean. We also talk about what are the Scrum ceremonies or the meetings that people put together. What are the sprint, which is the amount of work we do in 2 weeks? What are the fundamentals of the sprint? We also talk about user stories, which are the requirements in Agile. We also talk about how to write user stories and how to estimate in using story points. We also talk about how we do a sprint planning. So the most important thing about the Agile team is that the Agile team is the business and technology combined. There is no us and them. It is a cross-functional team that consists of all the developers, BAs, QAs, SMEs from network security. They're all there as one team. The most two important roles within the Agile team is the product owner, PO, and the Scrum Master. The product owner makes sure that they liaise with the business, the stakeholders, to make sure that whatever the development team is doing is actually according to what the business needs. So they play a very key role. They are also responsible for making sure the backlog is refined or prioritized, and the team is actually working towards what they're supposed to be doing. Now, the Scrum Master is allowing the team to be coached to make sure they follow the principles of Agile, and also facilitate ceremonies that we put together. At the same time, the Scrum Master makes sure that removes all the impediments, all the blockers that the Agile team may face. Now, the Scrum basics or the Scrum building blocks are the components, the epics, user stories, subtasks sometimes called, and the spikes. A component is a very high level. If a project consists of a front end, like a user screen, and a back end database in the middle and a network, then you can break those projects down into components, the back end, the front end. But most likely, people will be using epics as a way of combining all the stories underneath that. Epic is a big chunk of work. And underneath that, you can create as many stories to that. A story can only be for one epic. Epic can have more than one stories. To break the story down, which is like a requirement, it can be broken down into subtasks. On the right-hand side, you can see that there's a spike. Spike is a very good issue within Scrum that allows the team to do some investigation, explore a particular topic. What kind of database do we need? What kind of tool do we need? So the team is tasked to go and explore and find out. And if that, from the outcome of that spike, would be either a few more stories or a documentation or a process is documented. So if they don't know what they're doing, they need to create spikes and find out. Just to put the whole Scrum blocks into perspective, if building a house was a component, you want to break that down into epics like kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. So the kitchen will have a plumbing, sink, cabinet. Within the plumbing, you will have pipework, drainage, etc. So you can see that you want to make sure that if they talk about a story called kitchen, you want to make sure that is not an epic, because you will not be able to finish the whole thing within 2 weeks, which is a sprint. The most important thing is, as a Scrum Master, is to schedule the ceremonies so the team knows exactly what time they do have a daily stand-up, which is a touch point every day, 15 minutes, where they talk about, as a team, what they have done, what they will be doing today, and if there's any blockers for the Scrum Master to remove. It's a very good touch point for that, and they must attend to make sure that it kind of helps the team to move forward. As you can see, this is exactly what they do. They come together every morning to put their heads together to make sure that they are working towards the final goal. The backlog refinement and the sprint iteration or the sprint planning are two hand in hand. If you do a good job at the backlog refinement, you'll do a good job at the sprint planning. If you do a good job at the backlog refinement, the sprint planning will be very short. What you do in backlog refinement and sprint planning is to make sure that all the stories which are not active, not being worked on, are refined, make sure the description is clear, the development team knows exactly what to do, tester knows what to test. So you want to make sure the description is clear, the acceptance criteria is defined, and those who's going to pick up the story is able to understand, develop it. Those who are going to test it, understand, write test cases, and test the story itself. So these backlog refinement and the planning go hand in hand, make sure that the issues are refined, ready for the next sprint to start. Once the sprint is finished, the team does a demo to the product owner and then to themselves and to other people. And in that demo, what they do is they make sure that they demo what they did as part of the last sprint. And if all goes well, the product owner will say, that looks great, or will give them feedback. That feedback is taken into consideration to make sure that the team pivots, to make sure they accommodate those changes and move towards the final goal that the product owner wishes to see. Now, as part of the iteration, the sprint retrospective is lessons learned to make sure that was there anything that the team could have done better? What did they do good? What did they do that was really, really good that they want to continue doing? And what is it that they want to change? So they will come up with some list of things to do that they want to improve upon as a continuous improvement. And with the help of the Scrum Master, they will try to tackle one or two and make sure that then for the next sprint retrospective, they would have fixed that thing. The most important thing about sprint fundamentals, which are 2 weeks long cycle, that it is a time boxed. 2 weeks time box, the team, developers, QA, the Scrum team, the agile team is 100% dedicated. This is the most important thing to remember. They cannot be allocated to multiple projects. Now, some companies don't have that luxury to have a dedicated team, but if you can, it has to be 100% dedicated. The team itself has to be 80% capacity. Why? You have to allow some time, 20% for meetings, for discussions. So 80% capacity is what the team should be managed at. And in that 2 weeks time box, they're going to work as a single team. Each member is a superstar, i.e., is cross-functional. They should be able to do each other's work, help each other, peer review, etc. At the end of the day, when the team finishes the number of stories in a sprint, you find out how many story points or what effort they burn down. We talk about what the story points are, and that will determine the velocity, i.e., how many story points was the team able to complete within a sprint, i.e., within 2 weeks. That is the number that they need to have an idea. So when they do a next sprint, they'll be able to load as many stories that is within the velocity so that they know they can finish that much workload. And then the whole thing just does rinse and repeat. This is what we do. Once they've done this once for sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3 will be the same process, rinse and repeat. The user story fundamentals is that a user story in Agile is really a requirement, as people would talk about in Waterfall. So the user story, as it mentions, is from the user's perspective, what they want and why. And you usually write them as a type of user, I want to something activity so that there's a business value. So some examples would be, as an internet banking customer, I want to see a rolling balance for my everyday accounts so that I can keep track of my spending after each transaction is applied. So this is from the user perspective and what they want to do and why they want to do that. To estimate a story, which is a requirement, it's normally done in story point. Story point doesn't mean hours, doesn't mean days. It has no unit that we understand. It has a relative estimation. So if you look at the functionality, if this small box has a relative difference of smaller compared to the next one, which is a medium, you can see that you would do a relatively different estimate. So sometimes the team doesn't know how to do a story point, so we go with the T-shirt or even a relative difference, small, medium, bigger, or small, medium, large. But really, what they should come up with is the Fibonacci story point, which is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. And this is what they need to get to at the end of the day. And each one depends on the complexity of the functionality. If they know this will take one story point, something that's twice as much will take 2 story points, and then this will be taking 3, and this will take 8. So normally I will cap the estimate to be no more than 5 story point, because that should be enough for a team to work on within a sprint that is, like I said, 8 days. If it's a 10-day, 100% commitment, you want to give that 80% capacity. So you would normally have people just estimating every ticket, which is 5. If it needs to go more, you should split that story into smaller 2, 3, or 2, 2, 1, for example. Our sprint planning would go like this. All the backlog would have all the requirements or all the stories and to be prioritized with the top being the most important. Next thing you do is you take it from there. You can put it to staging sprint or you can put it into another sprint that they're going to work on, and you will make sure that they are clean, i.e. the description is clear. As we spoke earlier, that the story points are clear, have got estimate against that. And once that is clear, then you can start the next sprint and that becomes the active sprint. Once the active sprint is up and running, you can start providing some metrics like number of story points, number of stories that have been uploaded, and this will show you the burn down for that sprint as the team progresses. If the team follows the red line, they know they're going to be on target. If they are under, they're doing too good. If they're over, they're going to miss the target. So you as a Scrum Master tries to keep them around the red line by making sure they know that this is 50% mark and you are a little bit high, therefore you need to come in a bit. And then the whole cycle repeats. After every sprint, which consists of stories, tasks, enabler stories, which will help the stories to be completed, spikes, we talked about that. You can have all them put together on a shelf after every sprint. And when the team is ready to have a release or a minimum viable product, MVP, they want to make sure the code gets frozen, there are no defects, and there has been a final regression testing. There are all the approvals have been taken care of, sign off from the business, from all the lines of the business, and then is ready for deployment in production. And then there's warranty. So this happens when the team or the organization decides that after a certain number of sprints, they should be ready to deploy into production. Then you can have these kind of areas to take care of. Otherwise, in a real agile manner, every sprint should be deployable to production, but that's the maturity that every organization that I have come across haven't achieved that. So it is best that you put these sprints on the shelf. Only when you decide to make as an MVP should you start looking into these areas as well. So just to recap, so you now know that the agile team consists of people with various skills, therefore they are cross-functional. Each one is a superstar. You know that the building blocks of a Scrum, there are epics, stories, spikes, and you know what they mean. And you also know that there are ceremonies that the Scrum Master puts together, the team must attend, must adhere to, and the Scrum Master makes sure that they are following the agile principles on that. You also understand what the sprint fundamentals are, i.e., what do they need to do within a sprint, which is 2 weeks. Normally 2 weeks, you can have more than that, but you understand that it's a time-boxed approach. Everybody needs to work as a single team. And the whole thing rinse and repeat. And finally, you also understood what is a user story, which is like a requirement. And you also understood that you have to estimate using story points, which do not mean hours or days. It's just a unit within Scrum that talks about that. Visit howtoscrum.com for more information. It is an excellent website that tells you more about Scrum and agile development. And at the end of the day, How to Scrum is all about to make you as an effective Scrum Master. So visit howtoscrum.com. Thank you so much.